Francis is a board member, and it's not easy to grab hold of him, just as the same with the other two speakers as well. He's going to share with us what can I say if I lack direct experience. And I noticed there's quite a fair bit of a variation to this question. And that's why I type in there, I think let's hear from Francis. He's got lots and lots of tips, all right, to share. And so over to you, Francis. I'm just going to stop share. Again, the code is 2225181. And can you take it away, Francis?
Yes, most certainly, Eileen. Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. And
I can see it.
yeah, unlike Molly, I do not have a choice of what to choose for the topic. Eileen just gave it to me and say, okay, yes, ma'am. And that's,
Really?
I'm going to go into the presentation mode. But
Yep.
when Eileen asked me to talk about this topic, I'm actually delighted to, because I'm sure hopefully there'll be things that I can share with you, we can learn from it. But I'm sure I will be able to pick lots of tips from you, because you're out there in the workforce or in the process of changing job, and I could actually pick up from that on the vibes in there. So Eileen, maybe you could start with a poll question for the audience.
Yep. Okay. Okay, I've launched the poll. You should be able to see that on screen. And the question is, how many of you are thinking of a career change? Wow, before I finish, they already started to click their answer. Looks like Francis is, is
No
already there.
pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, it's
Okay.
already there in their mind, you just pull it out from their mind, right? So,
Excellent.
yeah. Wow, 70 of you have already put in your choices. So let us know what you think. So the three choices are there. Yes, I am thinking of a career change. No, I'm not, and undecided at this stage. All right. Do we have more? Do we have more? I think we've got like 75%. What about the other 25%? If you're undecided, you can always pick choice number 3, right? Undecided, unless for the rest of us, it's quite clear.
Or even for the matter, if this is your first job that you apply, just put yes, right? Yes, I am. I think that's great, Eileen. I think it give me a very good perspective of the audience profile.
I'm going to end the poll because I think we've got quite a fair bit of response already. And I'm sharing the result on screen. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. So everybody can see the result here. We've got a good 3/4 saying, yes, I am ready for a change, thinking for a change, thinking of a change. And then a good 7% say, no, I'm not. And then, wow, there's quite a huge chunk that's on the fence. Okay, on the fence. Okay, right.
Okay, good. Well, first of all, Eileen, thank you very much. And also, I am delighted to be given this opportunity to speak to you. And also glad that you're able to find time to, attend a session like this together with my co-speakers. Eileen, again, thanks for organizing. Also, thanks for Singapore for partnering in this initiative. Okay, let me just go on now. So let me just start with a little bit about myself. Okay, so I am a Singaporean, even though I live something like 20 to 25 years of my life outside of Singapore or working in Singapore, outside of Singapore. And those are the countries I work in. It makes me quite fluent in 6 languages. So my backup job is actually a call center operator. Okay, that's my backup job. Now, I have been in the IT industry for about 30 years. And my own personal hobby is I am actually a keen golfer. I do a bit of time with cycling as well as traveling when there isn't a pandemic going around. Okay, so I do enjoy that very much. And I put myself always in a very familiar situation that I'm always the minority. So like in this panel speaker here, we have 3 wonderful speakers. They are all female, and I'm only male here. So just like back home, right? I have 3 grown-up children, a pet or two pets, a retriever and a cat, and they're all female, right? So I'm the only minority pretty much, not only in this panel, but also at home. Okay, here's a little bit about my background. You can see on the left-hand side is all IT, all the way up to my current employment, which is with a company called Lifu. It's US-based, and I'll talk a little bit about that company at the end of my presentation. But it's not really that's not the main topic of the discussion. It's really just to give you an idea what we do, so that you have a perspective of why I made transition in my career. All right, and then on the right-hand side, you can see my education background, mainly in business, a bit of science. And then you notice also from business, and then the last degree I obtained was actually a Bachelor of Science in Public Health, which has nothing to do with IT, nothing to do with software, nothing to do with network. And I'm going to tell you about that story in a little bit of my at the end of my presentation. Okay. So just let me set some stage. Unlike Debbie and Molly, who are very well versed and very well experienced with HR, I am not a HR specialist. I'm not a HR practitioner. Neither am I a career recruiter. So please send your resume to Molly and to Debbie. Okay, but that, joke aside, we're more than happy to talk about this later on. Even though I'm not a HR specialist, I do have over 20 years in various roles dealing with HR, either as a manager, a mentor, or a coach. And in my last job, I actually had a team of something like 6,000 people in Asia Pacific that is under, not reporting to me directly, but in different level of hierarchy would actually move all the way up to myself. So I have been involved in many hiring, and also unfortunately in this day and age, right, as a CEO and as an employer, I have also been involved in many displacement of staff, either for voluntary reason or involuntary reasons, right? So I'm sure many of you have gone through interviews. So similarly, like myself, why I feel that it's a joy for me to share my experience about the topic, right, is I've been an interviewer myself many times. And I've also been on the other side of the fence where I went for job interviews as an interviewee. So I wanted to really take this opportunity to share with you two perspectives. If I'm employing or I'm the interviewer, what do I actually look out for, and what body language do I look out for? And then when I'm the interviewee, what do I try to do as best as I can to get that job, and not oversell, but making sure that I have a good chance or the best chance of landing that job that I desire. Okay. So what I'm going to share with you, it may seem a lot, but they are really very there are very short bullet points that I can share with you on these points. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the changing dynamics of the job market, right? And this is from my perspective. So number two, as an interviewer or as an employer, what are my expectations when somebody comes for an interview, right? I'll share my perspective on that. And then during the interview, I think Molly put up a couple of very good points in there, right? When you're going there for the interviewer or the interview, and the employers ask you the first question, tell me a little bit about yourself. Remember the question that Molly shared? Well, I'm going to share with you what is going through my mind or going through some of the employers' mind when we ask that question. Is that a trick question, or do we actually want to have a hidden meaning or hidden answer in between the questions, right? Here's something number four that not many people think about it, right? But it's important for an employer or interviewer, right? Why do we think the interview did not go well, right? And I'll share with you 10 items in there that you probably can take away. Number five is something about, Molly talked about confidence is really good, but also be careful about being overconfident. And, I'll share with you something called the Dunning-Kruger model. And it's actually very good because it is a model that tells you about confidence and your confidence building as you gain more knowledge along the way. Okay. And as many of you, 75% of you say you are thinking of a job career change, this model may be applicable to you as you're thinking about the next job and see whether how you fit in terms of your confidence against the knowledge that you need to get into that next job. Um, this is a topic of mine, number 6 is I think I'd like to share with you. I spent about 25 years overseas working for different companies, both multinational companies, well, mostly multinational companies and in different regions as well. So you may be considering, hey, that's one job I'd like to do, not in Singapore, because Singapore is 5 million people all sharing and fighting for that job. Maybe that's a job that I want to do in China or in Japan or in Korea. Well, let me give you a few tips about that overseas opportunity to consider, right? Then learning to learn, right? And a summary, and then I will share 2 stories about myself that you can take away about this topic, right? What do I tell or what do I say when I don't have any direct experience? Okay, let's jump into it. Okay, so 2 slides on this. I think everybody knows that we're living in a very, very challenging time, a very uncertain times. And you may have heard of this term called the VUCA world that we live today. Basically, the world is very volatile, right? It's uncertain because you may be asked to do something that without surety of what's going to happen 2, 3, 6 months down the road. And it is complex, we know, right? Everything that we know, for example, this session here, in a normal session, we'll probably be at some kind of meeting room. We'll be having a face-to-face. I'll be up in the podium talking to you about this. Hey, it's complex, right? We have to learn what is Microsoft Teams. We have to learn about Cisco WebEx. We have to learn about Zoom and things like that. And then, of course, it's very ambiguous. How does the VUCA world actually, in my mind, affects the labor market? Well, here's this, right? The changing dynamics of a labor market or the job market. So we have on the left-hand side, your left-hand side, the coronavirus, right? It started last year, and you know what? It has disrupted the entire food chain. We don't need a meeting room anymore. We just do the Zoom. That's the food chain that has been affected for people in conferencing, in hotel industry, in meeting rooms, or the rental of meeting rooms. It affected the whole thing. It affected our ability for demand and supply. So the supply chain all has been disrupted. Well, you know what? Companies also are seeing their profit. Of course, you have some exception, the profits are going up for pharmaceutical companies, but generally across, profits are down or flat in most companies. And when that happens, you will see that, hey, we got to look carefully at the cost, right? And unfortunately or fortunately, the biggest cost of any companies are the human capital, the people, right? So this is one scenario. Now you have another scenario, the technologies. As I mentioned, we're all into Zoom, we're all into WebEx, we're all into virtual meetings. We don't need all these things. The technology is driving this behavior, right? You have things like AI, artificial intelligence. You don't need essentially call center people as many as you would have in the past, because now it is going to be phone banking, which is actually an automated system to respond to you. So the technology is also changing the way and the job market as well. So what you end up with is companies that are looking for technologies to help them with the quality. They're helping them with efficiency of their operation, speed, and ultimately the cost has to come down to get the same level of margin or a better profitability. So if you add the 2 together, this is how the job market is being affected, right? You do have labor supply because people or students are still going to be graduating from our institution of learning. That's not going to change, right? And you will have demand that is lower, okay? So, you know what, employers are going to be a little bit more picky, right? That's the reality of it. So let me give you a sense of this topic. Now, I have myself have come across this topic many times as well. I'm sure you have as well, right? What can I say if I don't have experience? But I like that job, but I'm not sure if I will want to go for it because it becomes like a catch-22 or chicken and egg. If you don't give me the chance to apply, how can I have the experience? If I don't have the experience, well, then how can I get into the company, right? So it's like a little spiral. So typically, when you come across this question, I would say that you're probably right.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thank you. So you'll probably be in this part of the interview whereby you'll be faced with a situation, right? But the good news is that if you make yourself through past the phase 1 and phase 2, it means that you have a decent chance at the job.
I think you may have to share your slide. Sorry to interject. Share screen again. Yeah, share screen again. Because you kind of like catapulted out. Like,
yeah.
Sorry for that.
Sorry.
Cool.
Can you all see the screen?
Yeah, coming on. No, not yet. Yes, I see Leong waving. Leong.
Okay, let me do that again.
Yeah.
Okay,
coming on.
Okay.
Yeah. You drop off at the most exciting part. The most exciting part you drop off,
Which is I'm the minority, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When you say I don't have chicken and egg, then chicken and egg, then poof.
Okay, right. So I'm sure many of you have been in a situation where you are in the chicken and egg kind of situation. If you don't have the experience, how can I apply for the job? But then as an employer, if you don't give me the opportunity, how do I get the experience? So it's almost like a chicken and egg. So you're very much like in this situation in the interview process. The good news is if you have gone all the way to stage 1, stage 2, that means the qualifying stage. I think somebody asked this on one of the questions, right? These will be your pre-interview stage, okay? That means they will be qualifying whether you're successful to meet the panel or the interviewer. And you will be likely faced with a question at the interview stage, right? You want that job, but you're not cut up for it at 100%. What do you say or what do you behave or act on that? The good news is this, right? Most interviews, right, that I have been involved in fact, all interviews I've been involved with, we do not look at 100% of your scorecard based on your direct experience. All right, is what I would call the core experience or the core competency. Because in a scorecard, when we are rating an employer, or even if I'm trying to hire a director or hire somebody of a different rank, there will be other things I'll be looking for. Molly touched on those things earlier on. I'll be very keen to understand your transferable skills that you can transfer. Now, if you apply to be a doctor, that's different because it's so specialized. But if you are looking at a transferable skills, things like problem solving, your ability to manage team, your ability to do teaming, right? And then you have another part, maybe about the weighting, about 15 to 20% on your cultural fit, your values. I think Molly spoke about this as well. How do you fit well in the culture of Molly's company, in my company, right? Because you're not the only employees, there are so many other people. How do you actually fit into that dynamics of it, right? And 5% of it, you know what, as an employer, I'm looking for the X factor. Are you the pump up person? Are you the, okay, yeah, thank you, bye, that kind of person, right? So the X factor. So my good news to you at this junction is the core, at least from my experience, the core or the direct experience is about 55 to 60%. The rest of it, 40%, you know what? You have the ability to change that. You have the ability to be on top of your game for that 40%. Okay, let's look at me as an employer. What are my expectations if you come for an interview? Well, Molly also touched about this. I'm sort of like giving Molly all the endorsement, right? Sorry, Debbie, if you're in front, I'll mention your name at the same time, okay? But listen, Molly said the same thing. When you come for an interview, be honest and sincere about it. Be well prepared. Don't come for an interview and I ask you, do you know what my company does? I think you sell bananas. Okay, wrong, right? I actually sell fruits. Okay, I don't just sell bananas. Okay, whatever, right? And come for the right reasons. In many companies, you have an external title and an internal titles, right? For example, in my company previously, you may be externally known as a director, but internally you're a manager of different grade, right? So many people are attracted by the job title, not necessarily by the nature of the job. Okay, so that actually would be my expectation. Come from the job, not for the title, right? And I'll be very keen also if you're a candidate, well, what value do you bring and contribute to the whole team, not only to yourself, but to the whole team? Number five, as I mentioned to you, the transferable skills, which is the other 40%, is equally important, right? You may have be skills in a very, maybe a software engineer, right? That's very, very specific. But I want to know if you're able to do selling. Can you manage a team? Because eventually you may be a team manager or you are already a team manager. Are you resourceful enough? Can you solve problem on your own? Are you a team player, for example? So all those are important to me. And then are you long term or short term? Because if I hire you, Molly said this, we take a lot of time to prepare you to make sure that you're the right candidate and we come in. We don't want to lose you on our own fault that we didn't create a good environment for you and 90 days later you're out of the company, right? It is our loss, is maybe it's your gain, but it's definitely our loss as well. So, and many of you are internal candidates. You mentioned a career change. You may be a candidate today in your company, but you're looking for another role within your company. Well, you know what? The expectation is usually higher. Why? Because we would think that you'll be in the company long enough, you know the company culture, you know the job, you know about the company, the big picture. Usually we set a higher standard for internal candidates. Okay? So let's look at, Molly talked a little bit about this, but let me just give you my perspective of it. So you're here for an interview and I ask you a couple of questions, right? So on one side, I'll ask you the question and on the other side is actually what I'm looking for. Look, let's look at the first one. When I say, tell me something about yourself, what am I actually looking for? You know what? I'm actually looking at your ability to communicate, your communication skills, right? Your confidence level, and also your transferable skills. If you rattle on your whole CV, you know what? I have your CV in front of me, of you. I don't need to read it. Just tell me something about other things, maybe not in the CV itself, right? You may have also been asking you, well, tell me about your most successful project. Well, I want to know if that project was something that you, as an individual contributor, or you as a team player, put that project together, right? Another one, right? What's your most challenging project and how do you overcome it? Again, I'm looking at your transferable skills, your ability to solve problem, right? I know as a software engineer, you can solve it. Maybe you write a new code on it. Maybe you flush it, you purge it or whatever. But how did you go about doing it, right? Your ability to rationalize a situation, solve a problem, work with team. Those are your transferable skills. And when you go for the interview, don't just focus on your direct experience. Also focus on your transferable skills. What's your biggest achievement? Well, are you goal-oriented? Are you result-oriented? All right. Tell me about what you're doing in your current company, ABC. Well, I want to know when you tell me about what you're doing in the company, is usually a check and balance what you have told me about 1, 2, 3, and 4 above on the right-hand side. Molly talked about work-life balance. This is important. Why? It's not because I want to know what's your handicap for golf or how many kilometers you run every day or every week. It's not, right? Maybe, but it's not. I want to know your work-life balance because do you have that right personality and that cultural chemistry to work in our company, right? That's why it's important. And what are your weaknesses, right? Sometimes some of you gone for interview, I'm sure a lot of you have done, and you come across a question when people like me ask, what's your weaknesses? Well, you know why we ask that? Usually, right? Usually, we want to know if you're prepared for unrehearsed questions. Because you probably come and you rehearse I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and you can rattle on, right? But if I throw a curveball at you and say, what's your weakness? Right. But it gives us the ability to know if you are prepared for unrehearsed questions. We want to know the real you, not the recital that you have done and things like that. Okay, so hopefully this helps you, right, to understand from our perspective as an employer when we ask you these questions. Now, why? And then the last one, why do you want the job? Well, we want to know what's your motivation, as Molly has pointed out, whether you're long-term, short-terms, what's your career aspiration, and so forth. So here's the other perspective of it. Why do sometimes interview goes bad, or why do as an employer, you leave a poor impression on me? Well, there are 10 points in there. You're just overconfident. You're just cocky. You're just arrogant. You know that you think you can get the job. That puts a lot of employers off. Or you be the other extreme. You don't have confidence. You comes in there and you exemplify very low confidence, or you show very low confidence in your ability. It really leave a poor impression on the employer. Right? And of course, the first impression is important, how you dress, right? Your ability to speak. And I think Molly also mentioned about this. Be prepared. Come and know a little bit about the job scope, the nature of the job, and the company. Not come in there cold and say, well, and the worst thing you can do is, by the way, what does your company do? Don't ever ask that question. It's suicidal, right? You might as well say, thank you very much. I'm on my way out. Don't ever ask that question, please. Okay. The other four, right? You may have a fake interest. I'll share with you a little bit about my own experience about a fake interest. You pretend you're interested, but you're actually not. And the interview is not about you. You need to know, you have to make it a dialogue. It has to be both way interactive. Don't make it a monologue, right? And the interview should be not about yourself, as I mentioned, but also about the company, what you can contribute to the company. The integrity, well, faking the information, right? If you've never done something, say you've never done it, don't make it as if you have done or have lots of experience in it. The last two, for me, right, name throwings, right? Number 9. Imagine you go into a conversation and people start saying that, I know this, I know that person, Bill Gates, I used to play golf with him, and then, with Barack Obama, he occasionally have a drink with me. You know what? It puts interviewers off. It does, at least for me, okay? What does Bill Gates have to do with this job? Nothing. Maybe you should work for Bill Gates instead. Okay, Microsoft is different, all right? But, if you're working for my company, it has nothing to do with it, okay? And this is something I find lacking in a lot of interviews or candidates who comes for interviews. They leave and say, thank you very much for your time, and they leave, right? Don't be afraid to ask, hey, how do you think of the interview? Do you think I fit the job? Can you tell me what you felt as my strong point or my weak point? There's nothing wrong being interactive and ask that question and get that feedback. At least you know upfront what are your chances, right? Rather you go back and start thinking, oh, I think I got good chance. I got no chance at all, right? I rather know it upfront. Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about the overseas experience. I spent almost 25 years overseas in different countries, right? I can tell you it is not always rosy. Believe me, everybody says, oh yeah, let's go China, let's go wherever, let's go Korea. Well, do you speak Korean? I can tell you 60%, 70% do not speak English in Korea, all right? Because I live there and I speak Korean, okay? It's not always rosy. The expectation is always higher. Why? You're going to be competing with a local guy. So you need to understand, or the employer needs to know, why I should choose you as a non-resident, right, versus a local guy. Do you better be have something of the X factor or something really special to hire you, right? Understand the culture if possible, learn the language if possible, right? Um, you know, I was an okay Mandarin speaker, right? I won't say I'm top notch, but I spent many years in China, about 10 years in China, and I picked up languages and I, studied the language. I even wrote a few books in Mandarin as well. You can check it out. And I did the same thing in Korea as well, right? I went to Yonsei University, some of you know it, Yonsei University in Korea, and I studied the language, right? At least I know what are the bad things they taught behind my back, right? And then in every overseas opportunity, there will be opportunities and sacrifice. You need to be aware of that. It's not rosy. You go there, everything is perfect. Perfect. As much as possible, talk to as many people as possible. And this is something that I've seen in many countries during this pandemic time. This thing called first in, first out. Molly, you are finance trained, or you have a good idea of numbers. First in, first out is FIFO, is an accounting term. We have seen it in many countries, like a pandemic that's happened. You know what? Unfortunately, the non-residents are the one who usually becomes the casualty of a displacement, unfortunately, because it's the national interest to protect the nation's resources, right? That's the reality of it, right? But you know what? Here's my takeaway for you, right? I've done this for 20 years, no regrets. That's me. But if you want to do it, consider the 6 points that I put it up there for you. Okay? Hey, this is the academic part of me. Okay? Some of you know this theory is called the Dunning-Kruger effect, or the theory. This is important because it keeps you in check of your own confidence. Don't be overconfident. But it also keeps you in check when you're applying for a new job that you may not have a direct experience. It also keeps you in check whether you have the tenacity to carry on. So how does the theory work? Very simple. You saw a job and you say, I think I can do that job, even though I have that little bit of knowledge. So your knowledge base is so little, but you're so confident you can do it. So you see your confidence level is sky high. I know everything about AI. I know everything about fintech and cryptocurrency, right? Even though I just read a newspaper on it. So I feel good about it. All right. But as you get along the way, you got the job, you know what? As you been tested or you are in the field of picking up the knowledge, your confidence level tends to go downward, right? That's the theory. And you come to a bottom whereby, this is too much. I'm going to give up. Well, two group of people, you either give up or you continue to move on. If you move on, as more knowledge is gained, your confidence level will build up. And again, you can see the knowledge and the confidence coming up. So this too has always been with me when I look at career change, when I look at my ability to handle a task, right? This is a very good tool for me and also for learning as well. So as my point here is, as we have a new future, right, be expected to handle new skills. And when you have new skills, your confidence level will likely take a dip, but it will always go back up, right? Always, okay? And here's something with skill futures, right? I'm one of the guilty one. I have X amount of dollars. You know what? I've only taken one course, first aid part 1. And I told myself I'm going to take first aid part 2. I haven't done it yet, right? So knowing about the availability versus using it are two different things. I've worked in 5 countries. I can tell you, and this is not an advertisement for Workforce Singapore, Skills Future, right? I have not come across any other country that put out, incentive for people to learn. I encourage you, right, to take full advantage of it. Again, I'm not advertising for Skills Future or I'm not advertising for Workforce, okay? Okay, good. Let's look at my summary, all right? So employers today are selective, they are picky, right? But don't be too caught up about your direct experience because that is only maybe 55, 60% of what we are looking for. Now, other, Molly or Debbie, you may not agree with that, but at least from my experience, we are looking for other things like your transferable skills, your other skills beside you being able to be a programmer, you've been a network engineer, right? Or your ability to configure an IP router, that's incremental. You know what? Also understand your skill limitation. Look at the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Look at your confidence level, look at your skill limitation. Molly spoke about this. Be honest, be confident, but don't be cocky and don't be arrogant about it. Be well prepared when you're going for an interview. Know about the expectation, right? And know how you add value to the company, your transferable skill in addition to your core skill, right? It's not about all about you, it's about how you contribute to your future employer, right? Do you want the title or do you really want the job, right? That's important. What if one of the companies I work for in IBM, for example, when you are called a executive, some people say, well, executive is like, it's kind of like middle level, in companies like executive, it's actually a senior management level, right? It's a director's level. So don't be deceived by the title, right? Know your expectation of the overseas a job opportunity. And then, as I mentioned, ask for feedback, talk about the next step so that you know it upfront how you fare in that process. Okay, so I'm going to share. Eileen, how am I doing on time?
I think you're okay. Yeah.
All right, good.
You're fine. I can't wait to hear your story. I know your story, but yes, please tell them.
All right, I'm going to share two stories with you, and this
Okay.
is personal, so that you understand where I'm coming from when I put this presentation together. So the first one is called overplaying my competence, right? So in my span of my career, I was headhunted to join a global media company, but the posting was based in Japan. And some of you know, or at least I may have described it right, I speak 6 languages, right? So Japanese, if is one of those languages I speak fairly fluently, conversational. I won't say business Japanese, all right? Um, so the package was very generous, right? I was 70% sure that's the job for me. I was very comfortable because I can speak the language. I worked there. I know a little bit about Tokyo. I know a lot about Osaka and things like that, right? So you know what? I went for the interview. First round, second round, I could actually fake and bluff my way around easily, right? No problem. The interviews was thumbs up. And then when we get into the next level is where they deep dive into the details, right? When you have a panel interview, you have a panel expert deep diving into the specific skills of social media or global media, right? And the worst thing was that interview was done in Japanese. Okay, whoa, okay. I mean, okay, I can give a presentation in Japanese, but when you get into the terminology of how you describe a mouse, a laptop, a network, data center, right? This is where the truth will come out, right? So I began to stumble as more detailed questions. They asked me to talk about what is my digital roadmap, what's my experience with digital marketing. And you know what? I know my time was up. This is not for me. I've really gone as far as I can trying to make this job fit for me, rather I fit for the job, right? So you know what? I told the interviewers I did not want to progress with it and I stopped it, right? So don't overplay your competence, right? Be confident, right? Knows your limitation, be honest, right? At the same time, talk about what you can do as your transferable skill, but your core skill is also important, all right? Now, here's something, my second experience. As I mentioned in the beginning, right, I came from an IT industry for close to 25 years, and then I spent the last 3 years in change to biotechnology, which is my company today, LiftFood, right? I don't have a science background. It's always business or technology. So, when I got this opportunity, I did not feel comfortable at public event because you'll be with a PhD, a doctor in hematologist, you'll be a doctor that specializes in infectious disease and things like that. And you're trying to give that conversation, hey, do you play golf? You know what? They're not interested in that, okay? So it's like chicken and duck talking, dog and cat, so I feel inadequate adequate in it. So, and it was still, there was a deep learning curve because, when you get into the scientific terminology and public speaking, you cannot say, hey, that mosquito disease or that mosquito breed, you don't go into that, right? You have to get into very specific, the Andes mosquito breed, the vector-borne diseases that carries dengue, for example, have to be very specific on that. So how do I get the job? Well, I really focus a lot on my transferable skills, right? And in my transferable skills, I look at business acumen, right? I talk about management, I talk about transformation changes, consultative selling, how I can put the organization, it's not a big company, but how I can move the company into a global company with some of my transferable skills. And you know what? As the Dunning-Kruger theory, right? I even went back to school at 53 years young, right? And that was like not too long ago, right? But I went back to school. I was obviously the oldest in the class, and I got a degree in science in public health, right? Now, that may not be your aspiration, but that was mine, that I wanted to be on par, at least be able to speak intelligently at public event. So since then, I've also taken on an additional role. I've taken on partnership, licensing, deal management, commercial finance. All that is now under my responsibility, right? So don't be afraid to make that change. Don't afraid to talk about your transferable skill, not just about direct experience. I have zero direct experience in biotechnology, right? So here you are. That's my presentation. I'll leave you just with two very simple slides. What does LiftFood do? We're actually a life science company, right? And our motto is very simple, right? We want to have solution. We design our own solution. We formulate our own solution, and we make these solutions available either through development, discovery, or distribution, so that people can live their life freely, they can live it well, and live it to the fullest. That's why it's called Live Full, as in live life fullest. All right. We are not a charity, but we do a big part. About 25% of our returns come from doing NGO work in countries like many parts of Asia and also in Africa. Okay. And just to last slide here, what do we do? As I mentioned, we do things like consumer health, industrial health, diagnostic, and therapeutic. For example, in Africa, malaria is a big issue there. So we actually work with a lot of the government in Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria, and so forth, just to make sure that simple things like repellents are available to school children, right? So for me, this is my new life, right? So I think Molly end off with this is probably, if you want to look me up, this is where you can find me. Hey, that's
Hey,
my that's my company's website, livefood.com. I'm on LinkedIn. You can see that. Molly stole my word, right? Transforming, right? So yeah, we transform life as well. But Molly, we are on the same boat, okay?
hey, don't just say same boat, say same frequency, right?
Same frequency, yes. All right. So,
Yes.
again, Eileen, thanks for the invitation. I'm delighted to be with Molly and also with Debbie and Workforce Singapore. Thank you very much for your partnership. I wish all you all the best. I hope this is useful for you. You may have some question that I learned from you, or I may be able to answer. But all the best to you. Thank you very
Very
much.
nice. So nice. Everyone listening in, now if you are going to go for an interview at Live Full or wherever, Francis is, because he's a board member of many other companies. He's also a private investor. So, you know, you have his cheat sheet, okay? You have his cheat sheet. What the question is, you're going to dish out your cheat sheet and say, oh, that question he asked, wait, let me check. He actually meant this. I really like that. So, Francis, you have to come back again, definitely. All
Okay,
right.
delighted to.